kissing.
Beware, beware, the playoff picture.
Your head-to-head opponent just might bewitch ya.
What's up, fam? It's your boy Gall. We're doing a People's Pod Week 7 recap. I'm by myself here as I am in New Hampshire this week, as you've all seen from my lovely snaps. Still, didn't want to leave you all without the great content that we've been throwing out there. So, yeah, let's dive in. Last Saturday, Chelsea and I had a super early flight out of Santa Barbara. Sticks, my housemate, drove us to the airport really early, so shout out to Sticks, although there's no way in hell he hears this podcast. Flew to Denver. We slept the entire flight, so super quick. Got to Denver. Our flight was then delayed an hour and a half, so I think originally our flight was going to be at 9:30 Denver time, and we ended up not leaving until around 11. Which was really annoying because with a normal hour and a half time frame, what do you do in an airport? You go to the bar and drink. But the delay kept being pushed back by half-hour increments. So it was just enough time to not be able to go to a bar because you don't want to miss the boarding time. But after the third delay, Chelsea was getting really antsy, so we actually did end up going to a bar close by our gate. Turns out there were no more delays, so we both got a pint of beer. Ended up having to drink it really fast. I actually ended up having like 1.5 pints. So basically we go to the bar, slam these pints, quickly run to the bathroom, get back to the gate, and boarding time. That flight also was pretty quick. We watched 2 movies. First one, Enter the Spider-Verse, which we all know and love. Chelsea actually hadn't seen it, which I was floored by. So I encouraged us to watch that, and we watched it. Definitely was better than I remember. And I remember it being pretty good, so I was really satisfied with the rewatch. The next movie we watched was a film on Netflix, made by Netflix. It's called Yes, God, Yes. Kind of strange. It was about this Christian girl who is basically just horny all the time, but is feeling that old Christian guilt about giving into temptation and touching yourself and whatnot versus looking good in the eyes of the Lord and not doing anything H-related. So it was entertaining. Not as many lewd scenes as I would have expected. But in any case, with those 2 movies, the flight ended up being pretty quick. We got to Boston around, 5, I guess. Maybe a little after that. Got the rental car, then drove about hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours to where we're staying now, Sunapee, New Hampshire, which is, like I said, on a lake. It's really pretty. Currently, it's a little gloomy, but still fall is in season here, so the trees are really nice to look at. Definitely is a little chilly and damp, but otherwise, it's a pretty cool place. We're all still working remotely, so Chelsea and I, and then her housemate Alina, and then our friend Brandon, we're all here working and basically just drinking a ton. And so on Sunday, Brandon and I watched football all day. Got hammered, as we will do, and we'll just, jump into that. A few other things that we can touch on that happened this last week. So, actually, this is really important. The crop duties are falling to Peter Greenthumb, Brad. So, shout out to Brad for taking care of my crop babies while I'm out of town. I also want to touch on the baseball lineup debate that we had in the GroupMe. That was really, really fun to see because that actually was my question that I submitted. And during the podcast last week, I ended up not filling out my own lineup because I was afraid that the network was going to complain about the time we were taking. So we just did it, but it was cool to see Evan and Bacon and Pebs and everybody else throwing in their lineups and talking about it. That was really fun. Also, thanks, Evan, for letting me play in the outfield. It's a little credit to my athleticism, I guess. Weaver just had me as being a relief pitcher, which in this exercise basically means there's no place for you. So appreciate that. But anyway, yeah, it was fun to have that baseball lineup. Topical discussion. I know some of us really don't like talking about baseball, but half this league are fans of baseball teams, so it's not going away. Next thing, touching on my Bacon's Cam Akers and Adam Humphries trade that we made last week. So obviously I had Henderson. I have Henderson. The reason that this trade came up was because late last week Henderson had an injury pop up, a thigh thing, and they played on Monday night, and so I did not have a backup for that position in the case that he couldn't play. Now, I also was without Joe Mixon and Miles Sanders, both of whom were injured, and so I was in a rough spot already going into this weekend concerning my running backs. So I traded with Bacon. I sent him Adam Humphries, who I earnestly believe in. I know he didn't show up for Bacon this past weekend. Actually, really didn't show up. He only had one 19-yard catch on 3 targets, but I didn't feel like I was taking super advantage of him by any means. I did think Akers was the more valuable asset, however, and because of Henderson's potential injury risk for Monday night, I wanted to trade for Akers. I also had read something, one of the countless fantasy articles that I'm reading daily, that Akers was talented, and obviously they spent a second-round pick on him, and yada, yada, yada. And so all of that motivated me to acquire Akers. Additionally, Bacon had dropped Malcolm Brown earlier in the week, and I picked him up on Saturday morning. And so Weaver actually had made this comment in the GroupMe about how I now had 3 spots on my lineup bench team, all given to Rams running backs. And I knew that wasn't going to stay like that. And, at the time of this recording, I've dropped both Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers. But going into Monday night, given that Sean McVay has been not consistent in his usage of these running backs, and given Henderson's potential injury, I just wanted to have the entire backfield to see how it played out. Henderson got the bulk of the work, which is great to see. Unfortunately, Malcolm Brown got the touchdown, but I'm confident in having Henderson moving forward. And on top of that, seeing Cam Akers do absolutely nothing for the second week in a row made it so I could just drop him and without fear. Is there a potential for Henderson being injured and then I just lose that running back backfield? Perhaps, but I have a healthy enough budget still to where if that happens, I can throw a bid on there. So anyway, that's our little life update opening. I'm going to take a swig of Joe here for a second. Okay, so getting into the picks from this last weekend. So revisiting week 6, both myself and Stu went 4-2 in our picks. Weaver went 3-3. Now, this week I actually did something unprecedented, something that I didn't even know was possible, and I'm not even sure if this happened. I can't remember this happening in the history of our league. Is I went 0-6. I went 0-6 in my picks, which I'm sure you're all going to love to hear. Obviously, I don't love to hear that because now I went from being 19-17 on the year to 19-23, which is not good. But going through them, first one I got wrong. I picked myself over Evan. Now, in this matchup, like I had mentioned before, I was already down a few running backs, or my running backs. But the thing is Evan also was down in the same situation. So he obviously is without Nick Chubb, and Aaron Jones ended up not playing. I didn't have Joe Mixon or Miles Sanders. So in that respect, it was pretty even. Now, I still felt pretty good with my chances going into the weekend. And basically, the things that I was relying on to happen to win, a lot of them did not happen. So just quickly running through it, Josh Allen does not have a blow-up game against the Jets. And actually, he's been pretty pedestrian for his last 3 games, which is not good for me. Moving on, I relied way too much on the Chargers against the Jaguars. It's kind of funny after we had that whole thing about me not really caring if they win or lose, which I don't, but I still do expect them to perform for my fantasy squad. And, Mike Williams coming off his 2-touchdown, over 20-point performance against the Saints, gets 1 catch for 4 receiving yards. Josh Kelly only has 29 rushing yards and 24 receiving yards on 5 receptions. So the receptions are good to see, but the rush yards are god awful, and he doesn't get into the end zone in a game where the Chargers score 39 points. Side note, Herbert got a rushing touchdown in this game, and he's looking pretty good. I wish I had picked him up sooner, and Stu has him, so kudos to Stu for that pickup. And then the defense. They allowed 29 points. One thing about defenses the scoring for defenses that I would like to see changed, or at least have a discussion about, which is funny because, I'm a proud member of the COP, the Change Opposition Party. But it seems a little unfair for defenses to be penalized for pick sixes, right? Because a defense has absolutely nothing to do with that play, yet not only is the opposing defense getting that pick 6 points, that counts. But for the defensive player on our roster to get docked points for a pick 6 where they weren't even on the field, seems kind of fucked. But anyway, my team didn't pan out. Oh, my boy Koo only put up 2 points, which is, out of character. But I'm sure he'll bounce back because, he's my boy. On Evan's side, things were going great for me up until Kansas City defense just shat on the Broncos. They had a returned touchdown, a pick 6, multiple interceptions. It's kind of like we were talking about the Baltimore Ravens and their defense with Lamar Jackson on Bills' squad a few weeks ago, where the Ravens defense blew up and Lamar Jackson had a ho-hum game. Pretty similar thing here where Mahomes does nothing or next to nothing, but he didn't really need to because the defense just destroyed the Broncos. 43-16 is a smashing. And then Ayuk did great for Ev. Deebo Samuel going down for the Niners definitely assisted that. But in any case, getting to the next matchup, Evan beat me. I picked myself, Weaver picked Evan, and Stu also picked Evan. So those guys get those points. Next, we got the Pebbles and Brad. Now, I thought this was going to be the matchup in the week, and I actually picked Brad. Stu picked Brad. Weaver picked Pebbles, however, and Weaver was the only one of the 3 podcasters that was right. Pebbles' team absolutely went off. Obviously, Murray had a giant game, but Robinson against the Chargers, he's been doing really well. Todd Gurley, that was really funny watching him accidentally score that touchdown at the end of the game, and the Falcons lose, of course. Keenan Allen taking all those points away from Mike Williams, which, we've seen that Herbert loves Allen. And then Buffalo defense showing up against the Jets. So Pebbles' team had a phenomenal day. On Brad's side, he still puts up 115. Rodgers has a great day. Godwin has a great day. Kamara also has a great day. But yeah, getting negative points from McKinnon on a week where you think he would be getting the bulk of the carries, that sucks. But I imagine he'll have more involvement this next week as Wilson now is injured. But anyway, Pebbles takes down Brad. Next matchup, we have Weave and Bacon. Now, I chose Weaver, Weaver chose Weaver, Stu chose Weaver. So all 3 podcasters chose against Bacon. And Bacon gets the W. Only scores 119, so I guess maybe a respectable 119. But Weaver's team did not show up. Joe Burrow for Bacon, huge game. 3 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and over 400 passing yards. Really carried Bacon to victory. Rams defense against Chicago also really good. And then Hawk and Cock, big game for him with a receiving touchdown. On Weaver's side, really no one stands out except for Christian Kirk, which actually that's been a good pickup for Weave. I know he bounced around, but in the last 3 games he's put up double-digit points. And then Matt Prater for Weaver putting up 14. See, there's a kicker putting up points for you, Weaver, talking shit on the kicker, and there you go, 14 points. But 86 points to Weaver overall. This is a week that he will like to forget. But Bacon, against all the podcasters, takes down Weave. Next one, we got No One Fucks Like Gaston against Yadam. Now, all podcasters chose O'Malley. O'Malley was on a hot streak. Adam, was having a rough time. And then Adam takes down O'Malley. Now, this matchup actually got a little bit closer than we were expecting. I know it came down to Monday night. And obviously, Adam had Robinson going and the Bears defense where O'Malley had Montgomery. So I remember at one point it was pretty close, but then the Bears got that pick six and that basically put it away. DJ Moore, my previous boy, big game for Adam. Devontae Adams, huge game, 13 receptions, 196 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's looking pretty healthy. And then, for O'Malley, Butker does great. Hopkins is great. 0 for Beckham, and that torn ACL, that really sucks. But he did go back to the well, and his boy Russell Gage gets a solid 8.4 points out of him. But, in this one, Adam shocks the world, gets the W. All right, so next matchup, we have the weekday teetotaler versus, honestly, fuck fantasy. Good to see that Scott's changing up his name so much. He's putting in that effort, those creative juices flowing. This matchup was closer than Scott probably expected when he changed his name. Biggest bummer for Scott is that Michael Thomas still has not played, since week 1, which is so crazy. When Scott made that pick, we all were, thinking it was a good pick. But, to this point, he hasn't played in forever. Might play this week against the Bears, but, might not. I had picked Scott to win in this one because I thought he was going to have all 4 of his receivers ready to play. So Thomas doesn't play. CeeDee Lamb only has 0.1 points on 1 rush yard. 5 targets, no receptions. So, that's not going to be the standard. But, yeah, the Cowboys' offense is kind of in a state of disarray. And then, Breeze playing. So let's see. Wentz put up about 4 more points than Breeze, which would have given Scott the win. Let me see. So, he put up 4 more points. So had Scott played Wentz instead of Breeze, Scott would have got the W. But, whatever. Lots of what ifs in fantasy, huh? Gronk finds the end zone on 5 receptions, so maybe that pick will finally pan out. And then Scott getting double digits out of both his kicker and his defense and still taking the L, which you hate to see that. On Stu's side, great games like both Watson and Brown. Yeah, A.J. Brown seems like the real deal. 153 receiving yards, a touchdown, 6 receptions. David Johnson has another good game. Claypool, only 0.3 points. So that's actually kind of funny. In this matchup, both Claypool and Lamb basically cancel each other out. But, overall solid performance for Stu's squad. He gets the W with 118 points. I had picked Scott, which is wrong. Stu picked himself, and Weaver picked Stu as well. So 2 out of 3 podcasters picked Stu. Next matchup, we got Blood Diamond Bill versus the Fresh Prince of El-Air. Bill's team went off, on the back of Tyler Lockett, 3 receiving touchdowns, 200 yards. Holy shit, 46 points. Then on top of that, Deontay Johnson, who got injured again, but is set to play this next week. He gets 2 receiving touchdowns before leaving that game. And then Gibson finally has a day in which Bill can be proud to make that trade. 128 rush yards and a rushing touchdown. That's a phenomenal day. And then Jamal Williams filling in for Aaron Jones has a big day. On Max's side, Russell Wilson has a Russell Wilson game. Same with McLaurin. Yeah, this is a good week for Max, and just went up against the buzzsaw, which, as we've seen, is part of the course for poor Max at this time. But points count, although sitting at 1-6, that's rough. Bill takes this win. I chose Max, but and Stu chose Max as well. So Weaver's the only one of the podcasters to get that one right. And then let me see. Is that all those matchups? Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Yep. So that was last week. Again, I went 0-6, which fucking sucks. Weaver goes 4-2. Stu goes 2-4. So last week on the People's Pod, we did the hot debates segment. There's a few questions we didn't get to that I want to touch on today because these are actually listener questions, and I want to do right by my listeners. So, first question. Let's see if I can find this one. Dear People's Pod, long-time listener, first-time writer, big fan of the season so far. I've heard many stories about your exceptional glutes. I wonder who this person could be talking about. Do you have any tips for someone looking to add more mass to their glutes, that is? And do you have any diets you'd recommend for general bulking? Sincerely, Swole in San Joe. Well, Swole in San Joe. Few thoughts come on top of my head, but really someone with the glutes that I have, this is really a God-given gift and talent. Of course, you can eat all the carbs, the red meats, double-digit beers on football Sundays really help to get the bulking going. But some things, they say you can't teach tall. Well, you can't bulk an ass like this one. But if I were to give a suggestion, we've all been to the stadium and ran stadiums in our day. You always see those wannabe Instagram model girls doing those glute workouts where they do a lunge up the steps. I know Stu subscribed to many influencers once upon a time on the gram that did this exact same workout. And so that's what I would suggest as if you want to really put in the work. But otherwise, red meats and BLs on Sunday. Next listener question. This one comes from PB Lee in Portland. PB Lee's question is, if you were to answer this question objectively, no emotions attached, who are the 6 teams making the playoffs in our league, and what are the seedings? So this one is a fun question, a deep dive, a little more difficult to do as I haven't really prepared for it. But if I was going to pick the 6 playoff teams, unfortunately, both 6-1 teams at this time are probably in, right? We talked about it last week, and meeting the 7-win threshold to get there. And these two dudes, the weekday teetotaler and Blood Diamond Bill, are right on the cusp of that. Probably can count Bacon in too, because he's at a 5-win team. So let's see, what is this? This is week 8, which means there are 5 weeks left. So Bacon just has to go 2-3 in the next few weeks to get to that 7 spot. So I bet he can do that. So those top 3 guys are probably in. After that, it gets a little hazy. Weaver's got a lot of points for right now at 896, even with his last week of only putting up 86. So I think Weave makes it. Pebbles has had a monster week. It looks like his team is turning around a little bit here. Robinson is huge, although this week both Murray and Robinson are on a bye. But Galladay is back and doing well. Allen's doing well. Gurley's doing well. Man, I don't want to take the easy way out and pick the top 6 teams right now, but I think it's probably how it's going to shake out. I think Brad obviously could, both Brad and No One Fucks Like Gaston could probably crack into the top 6 too, and my team, the Riddler, is a little bit in danger because I just took that loss, not scoring for many points, and then both my running backs, Mixon and Sanders, are still questionable for this next week, and then they both have a bye in the same week with Henderson. So my top 3 running backs will be on a bye at the same time. Seeding. Well, let's see. If I were to project how these teams are going to go, let's see. Can I copy this text right now? Yeah, okay. Let's see. I'm doing some hashtag podcast math here for a second, so you guys have to give me a little pause. Okay, so let's see. Right now, Stu is 6-1. I go to my projections for this week, if everybody goes 500 in the top, which might be the easiest, there's 5 games left. So let's say that Stu is going to go 8-4. That's not right. 7, 2, 3. Oh, there's 6 weeks left. Okay, which means we haven't had week 8 yet. All right, so let's say Stu ends at 9-4. Well, actually, the seedings probably wouldn't change if I do this. Seems like this question needed a little more preparation. You know what? I want to revisit this next week. Pebs, I'm not doing you justice, but right now my inclination is that the top 6 teams are going to be the 6 teams that make the playoffs. Seeding is not going to change very much. Possible Bacon falls a little bit because his points 4 is low. And Weaver has a lot of points more than Bacon does, so that's probably the change that I would make. I think Stu would be 1, Bill is 2, Weave is 3, Pebs 4, Collin 5, Bacon 6. That's what I'm going to go with. But we'll revisit this next week, and I promise to have a little more research done with matchups and whatnot, because I think that's what will tell how these seedings shake out. Okay, so moving on. Well, we can do a little MLB update here. As we all know, Dodgers just took that W last night, and they win the World Series. Happy for Weaver and Scott. 32-year drought, so their entire lifetimes I haven't seen the Dodgers win. The Dodgers did seem like the best team in baseball this year. They had like the best regular season record. Mookie Betts was everything that they paid for. Seager was phenomenal in the postseason and the regular season. Kershaw finally gets that monkey off his back. So, congrats to Weave and Scott. I definitely still have gripes against the Dodgers and just how they have limitless resources and they just need Mr. Moneybags and buy all the talent they want. But on the other end of that, they have had some guys they've developed like Seager and Dustin May and Gonsolin, who made major impacts this year from their farm system. So congrats to you Dodgers fans, and I hope they don't win again in many, many years. Now, going to the waiver wire here and checking my work from last week. So last week, waiver wire, I suggested getting Tevin Coleman. So he was eligible to come off the IR. Mostert just got injured, so the running back field was in a little bit of, disarray, question mark. He actually did not play last week. And, as we saw, Jeff Wilson had 3 touchdowns, but then got injured. McNasty was still involved, and then McKinnon seemed to be in the doghouse. I think it was Weaver mentioned, did McKinnon sleep with Shanahan's wife or something to get that treatment? So Tevin Coleman, kind of a TBD on that one. We'll see how it shakes out this next week, but it seems like Shanahan is taking a page out of McVay's book and just having a different hot hand each week. Other waiver wire person that I had mentioned was Boston Scott. Boston Scott, the backup of Miles Sanders. Now, I was actually talking a little bit of shit on Boston Scott and how when he was a starter in week 1, he did not do much of anything with that opportunity. He ends up getting O'Malley 16.7 points in a losing effort to Adam, though. Scott had 46 rush yards, 46 receiving yards, 3 catches, and 1 receiving touchdown. So maybe this is, not the best analysis to say, but without that, last drive receiving touchdown, which was a pretty amazing play all around, the throw and the catch, this line for Scott looks a lot different, right? I think that was like a 20 or 30 yard touchdown catch. So the bulk of these points came on that last play. But those count, and the Eagles got the W. O'Malley made a good pickup. I sure as hell could have used these points, but we'll see if Miles Sanders is out this week, and if they are, this would be another good start against Dallas for Scott. Boston Scott, that is. This week, looking ahead, so actually I want to dive into the transactions we made on the waiver wire. Seeing as this podcast is coming out a day later than usual, we can comment on these transactions. I personally made bids for both Higgins and Aguilar to the cock ring. The Higgins one went for $19. There's a lot of action on this one. Pondulce picked him up, which, good for Brad. Brad's receivers have always been the question mark on his season thus far, and Brad definitely has fallen from grace. After going 3-0, he's dropped 4 straight, now being 3-4. So this is a good expenditure for Brad. And unlike his Greg Ward $21 expenditure earlier in the season where no one else bid on, this was actually a hotly contested player. I think Higgins is going to have a big role. Baker Mayfield's going to be slanging it. The Browns, they're going to be playing a lot of close games, or they're going to be down. So I think this is a great pickup for Brad. He gets it at $19. Scott put in an $18 bid for that one, so that was really damn close there. And then the next highest was my $9 bid, but good for Brad. Next one, Zach Moss. So this is pretty interesting. Zach Moss was getting like 50% of the carries, I think, for the Bills. Now, this was Zach Moss of the Scott and Bill trade, who Bill obviously dropped as he was available on the waiver wire. Bacon gets Moss with an $11 bid. The next highest was $4 by Blood Diamond Bill to try and reclaim the guy he dropped. I'm not sure how this is gonna go. I know Moss had some preseason hype, and it seemed like he's taken the job over more from Singletary, who, by the way, is on Bacon's roster. So this could be a kind of see how it plays out move for Bacon. One thing to note is that Josh Allen was the Bills' leading rusher on Sunday, and he will continue to have those carries. So not really sure how it's going to go in that backfield, but Bacon wins this one. Bill grabs DJ Dallas, who might be the starter in Seattle, as both Carson and Hyde are injured, but this is more of a 1-week pickup. Curious to see if he actually makes Bill's roster. O'Malley grabs Corey Davis for $11 after Stu was looking at him. Maybe this was a little bit of gamesmanship from Stu, getting O'Malley to make this bid uncontested. So congrats, Bro O'Malley. He's all yours. Definitely interesting. He did have those 10 targets, but we'll see. A lot of mouths to feed, it seems like, in that offense between Brown, Jonnu Smith, Adam Humphries, and Davis, not to mention Derrick Henry. Aguilar the cock ring goes to Scott for $18. He actually beat himself. I love when this happens. Another $18 claim by Honestly Fuck Fantasy. Blood Diamond Bill had the next highest offer there at $7, and then myself with $6. Scott gets it. Scott's had a lot of question marks in that previously assumed really strong receiver core, with Thomas being questionable every week and CeeDee Lamb just being in that quagmire of a Cowboys offense now that they're down to their third-string quarterback. And then Bill gets Gus Edwards, someone I was definitely keeping tabs on, but that three-headed monster seems to shift every week to who gets it, so I don't know if that's really going to pan out. Maybe you'll hit the jackpot on some weekends, and maybe you won't. I think it's going to take an injury to one of the other dudes to really make any of the other guys worthwhile. And I know Brave Sir Dobbins is hoping for Dobbins' role to increase. But anyway, fun waiver wire transactions going on. That moves to the suggested guys that I was going to throw out there. So this is after these bids have been placed. So this would be just a pickup for anyone who agrees with me or not. But 2 guys that I'm looking at that are still available at the time of this recording is Zach Pascal on Indy, wide receiver. So in the last game the Colts played, they went down early to the Bengals, and which forced Philly Riv to start slanging it. Pascal had 4 catches on 7 targets for 54 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, if you read his little blurb, it talks about how Rivers is not going to be throwing that much in games moving forward, and how the Colts probably should be more in control. But this weekend they're playing Detroit. Detroit gives up a lot of points to the wide receiver position, as we saw by the Falcons on Sunday, with Ridley scoring over 17, Julio scoring over 13, and even Gage getting involved at over 8. So he's someone who I keep an eye on. A lot of movement with the wide receivers this weekend on the waiver wire. So if you're still looking for someone, Pascal is still out there. Second guy that I wanted to take note of is Austin Hooper. So he had a surprise appendectomy before last weekend. Didn't play, not expected to play this week against the Las Vegas Raiders. And then they have a bye after that. So if you're picking him up, you're not going to be able to use him until week 10. But as we just saw, OBJ went down, and the Browns use a lot of 2 tight end sets. Before the appendectomy, Austin Hooper, and this was with OBJ healthy, was averaging over 7 targets in the last 3 games. He had 5 catches in each of those 3 games to the tune of 11.9 points, 8.2 points, and 7.7 points. So he's basically scored a touchdown or had 50 yards receiving on 5 catches in the last 3 games he played. Obviously, I had some stock in Hooper last year, but with Beckham out, he could get some increased play. So with that, we will move on to the picks for this week, starting with another East Wing rivalry matchup. We got myself and Weave Dog. Now, obviously, I'm picking myself, although this one was a little difficult to pick. It's going to be a close matchup. A lot of it is going to rely on the health of my running backs, I think. Right now, both Mixon and Sanders are in my lineup. I'm expecting one, if not both, of those guys to not play. But if that does happen, I'm still going to have Henderson and have to go back to the well with Kelly, except the Chargers are going to be playing. Well, yeah, that's actually going to be a fucking crapshoot. But anyway, I'm picking myself in a close one. I think Ridley is going to have a day against the Panthers. I think the Bengals are going to be down against the Titans, and so Boyd is going to be targeted a lot. Hender Dog against Miami. I mean, he's had some so-so games leading up, but I think it's high time for a nice blow-up game from him. And then again, Koo against Carolina. He should get back to his double-digit kicker ways. But on Weaver's side, I think there's a little more question marks, which is why I actually picked myself. Not so much on the strength of my team, but on the my assumed weakness of Weaver's team. So Juju up against the Ravens. That's going to be difficult for him. Both Elliott and Mike Davis right now are projected at over 15 points each, and I think it's going to be a hard time for those guys to reach those projections because Dallas offense is looking terrible. In Zeke's last 2 games, he scored 8 points and 5.6 points. So him getting to 15, I think, is far-fetched. And then Mike Davis playing tomorrow night. So this obviously hinges on the health of McCaffrey, but I think McCaffrey is going to be back, and then that obviously super dinks Mike Davis's value. But even if McCaffrey isn't back, Davis just put up 6 points against the Saints last game, and then 10 points the game before that. So, even though Atlanta's defense is not that great, their front is better than their secondary. So I don't think Zeke or Davis is going to reach that 15-point projection they currently have. And on top of that, George Kittle, his bush is huge as well, where the Seahawks haven't given up double-digit points to a tight end all year. Now, they haven't come up against a tight end of the caliber of Kittle, but, with Deebo Samuel going down, Kittle obviously is getting more and more attention from defenses. I mean, in New England, he only had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 55 yards. Now, obviously, the Niners ran away with that one, so maybe the game script just wasn't there for Kittle, but I'm picking myself because I don't think Elliott, Davis, or Kittle meet their projections, and Juju right now is going to have a tough time against the Ravens. Next matchup, we got Pebs and we got Adam. Now, this is a fun one. Adam is coming off of a big win, and I'm picking Adam. I'm picking Adam because Pebbles has some question marks to address. Biggest one being Kyler Murray. So Pebbles did pick up Derek Carr going against the Browns. Carr's had a string of all right games, almost 20 points against the Buccaneers, but in a game where they were, they lost by a large margin, you'd hope for a little more than that. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 284 yards throwing for Carr. But on top of that, Adams got the stack of Bridgewater and DJ Moore going against the Falcons tomorrow night, so that'll be a fun one to watch. Devontae Adams just had that monster game, and they're going up against Minnesota, who, they've been garbage. Jacobs against Cleveland. Melvin Gordon is back against the Clippers. The Clippers like to give up points like nobody's business. Hollywood Brown against Pittsburgh does, give a little bit of pause. But overall, I think Adam is going to continue this little one-game heater he's on and get the W over Pebs. Mostly because Pebs is going to be without Kyler Murray and then James Robinson, who has been probably Pebbles MVP beyond Murray to this point. Next matchup, we got UConn McKissick this D versus Weekend T Totaler. I'm taking Bacon over Stu in this one. Stu currently has a full lineup with Bush points under 100. So obviously you can take that with a grain of salt. He's got both Brian Hill. Actually, his running backs are Peterson, Hill, and Alexander Madison. So not exactly the strongest core. Stu, this is a bye week for Stu. All of his Jags and Texans are on a bye, so he's got to play Herbert, who actually has been crushing it. So Herbert probably is going to beat his projection, as he's just been absolutely rocking. 39 points this past game with almost 350 yards throwing, 3 passing touchdowns, rushing touchdown. That's phenomenal. Brown and Higgins have been good, but I'm taking Bacon because we got Brady up against the Giants. We got Tyreek Hill against the Jets. Landry is playing against the Raiders. Now Landry, you would think his usage increases, along with Rashad Higgins in that Browns offense with OBJ out. Derrick Henry versus Cincinnati. I mean, this has all the makings of a giant game for Henry again. And then the Rams defense against Miami. The Rams had a good game against the Bears, and I see them continuing that against Miami. So this one, I'm taking Bacon over Stu. Next one, we got O'Mal's against Scott. Now, this one gave me a little bit of thought. I ended up taking O'Mal's just because I don't want to be too cute and think too much on it. O'Malley's team has been really hot. Tannehill's going against the Bengals, so he should put up some points. Fulgham is getting double-digit targets every game. Jefferson is coming off a bye. The game before that, he had 9 catches on 11 targets, 2 touchdowns, 166 yards. Phenomenal. Some pause with Crowder if he's going to be playing or not, but O'Malley gets Dalvin Cook back this week. That's a huge boon for his team. On Scott's side, we've already talked about the receiver questions, both CeeDee Lamb, Michael Thomas. Huge question mark. Scott currently has Frank Gore in his lineup, although he will be getting Jonathan Taylor Thomas back, so I'm sure that will change as Scott addresses that lineup. Will Scott play Wentz against the Cowboys after not playing him the last game? Wentz is kind of on a hot streak this past few weeks, playing Sunday night against the Cowboys, which, yeah, again, we've been talking about the stupid NFC East, getting all these primetime games. It's complete bullshit. Another question mark for Scott is Julio Jones. He's got some injuries, so keeping tabs on his status ahead of their matchup against the Panthers on Thursday. But I don't really want to think too much on this one. O'Malley's team, I think, is the stronger team. Took the hard loss to Adams past weekend, but with Dalvin Cook and Jefferson coming back, Tannehill against the Bengals, I think O'Malley takes this one over Scott. Next matchup, we got Blood Diamond Bill versus Pondulce. So in this one, I'm taking Brad over Bill. We've been talking about how Bill's team is a little weak for a 6-1 team. I mean, still 6-1, so he's obviously doing something right. But I'm taking Brad because McKinnon, you would think he's going to get some more play now as Wilson has been out. Rodgers going against Minnesota is going to be a big game. Brad did grab Higgins to address some of his receiver woes, so you imagine he's going to get back into this lineup, probably subbing out for Robinson, who was someone I actually put a bid on last week and did not get. Kamara is going to do some Kamara things, but I really like Travis Kelce against the Jets. And then Swift, his role is increasing as the weeks go on, so I think he easily meets that projection. Whereas on Bill's side, the Ravens against Pittsburgh is going to be tough for Jackson. Bill now is going to be without Kenyon Drake, who's on a bye, Gibson, who's on a bye. So Bill's got to trot out Latavius Murray as one of his running backs right now. Yeah, Bill's kind of hurting in the running back position, especially right now. He's got Jamal Williams in there, and Aaron Jones is probably going to play. So if that happens, Bill is going to be that's probably actually why I picked up Gus Edwards as that flyer. Yeah, I just don't like where Bill's sitting at running back right now. And then Jonnu Smith, after having that monster game against Buffalo 3 weekends ago, has had back-to-back not great games. I know he was dealing with that injury, but I guess they are playing Cincinnati, so in that respect, he could have a bounce-back game. But just because of the running back situation with Bill, I'm taking Brad in this one. I think Brad stops the slide and gets to 4-4 while showing that Bill is kind of a paper tiger here. Last matchup of this week 8, we have We Demand a Chubbery versus the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm taking Evan in this one. I like Robbie Anderson against the Falcons. Ayuk now is going to have an expanded role that Samuel went out. Definitely some question marks though for Ev, as Gio Bernard currently is in there. Mixon status is up in the air. Amari Cooper playing with third string quarterback is not great. And Evan did pick up Kmet, the tight end for Chicago, to fill in there. But I do think Evan gets Aaron Jones back, which obviously would be a huge plus for his team. On Max's side, yeah, I mean, Max, this actually is a closer matchup than I originally had thought. Mike Evans, while banged up a little bit, is going to be playing without Godwin. So if Mike Evans does play, his usage is going to increase. Russell Wilson, you obviously can't bet against him. I mean, his low points have been 20 this year and just put up 30 against Arizona in that Sunday night game. AJ Green has got double-digit targets in the past 2 games. Watkins can return from injury against the Jets, so if he plays, that's huge. And then Allaire against the Jets too. So this one is actually closer than I had originally thought. Shout out to Mr. Blankenship. Max loves this kicker, dropped him and then picked him right back up. Yeah, I'm going with Evan. I mean, he's getting Aaron Jones back most likely. Ronald Jones against the Giants is going to easily beat that projection. And then the Kansas City defense, after just shitting on the Broncos and on my hopes of a win this past Sunday, going against the Jets too. So with Mahomes and that KC defense against the Jets, Jones against the Giants, and then the increased role of Ayuk, I think Evan's going to take this one. Yeah, so those are the picks. It's been a fun pod by myself. Again, I'm out here in New Hampshire, going to be here for the rest of the week. I look forward to the games this weekend and tomorrow night. Obviously, I got my Falcons. My boy Koo, let's go. And again, shout out to Kurt for the amazing Halloween-themed jingle for this week. All right, dudes, with that, good luck to everybody except my weave dog. I shall be the king of the East. See ya.
French kissing.
Beware, beware, the playoff picture.
Your head-to-head opponent just might bewitch ya.